Well, first of all, I watched the first 6 episodes of Gotham Knights and really enjoying it. Again, I've been just refreshing my inbox, like, so where's episode 7? Just waiting for episode 7. Uh, but um, but I was talking to Natalie yesterday about how the show came about. But I want to kind of hear from you guys involved, your side of it, of while working on Batwoman, how you guys, what made you guys want to be part of Gotham Knights?
I mean, I think that we had a great time working on Batwoman, and so when Natalie presented this idea, for us, it was what we thought was very exciting to us was the idea of taking people that will become superheroes, but really starting from a place of where everything has been taken away from them. Take away everything that makes it easy. Take away the super suits. Take away all, the billion-dollar hardware.
Yeah.
Make it as challenging, as tough, and on top of that, we're going to make them wanted by every law enforcement agency.
Yeah.
We're going to make them, people think that they have committed this heinous crime. We're going to start them from literally the most vulnerable place you can possibly imagine and be like, oh, okay, now be a hero.
Yeah.
And that to us, I think, was probably the most exciting aspect of it.
I think so. I mean, the thing we would say is, having written on shows with like super suits, they're great, but they kind of make you a little invincible. And so one of the things we loved about taking all that stuff away, and when we pitched it to the studio and the network, we had said, in our universe, bullets kill, and there are a lot of guns in Gotham.
And so that just felt very fresh to us, and it's sort of fun, and to sort of to take the evolution. And so eventually, if we're lucky enough to keep continuing to tell this story, eventually we'll get to the place of super suits and fun stuff like that. We really wanted to take as much time as we could with getting that journey there, that we didn't want to do the version where it's here you're handed this incredible piece of technology, now you're a hero. We wanted to force them to earn it first, before they got the things that made it much easier.
Yeah, and show them be not great at it, and like find, and really, because one of the things about them not being kind of ready-made superheroes, with Carrie Kelly being a little bit the exception, which one of the things we love is she's also the youngest of the group and is the most experienced vigilante, who certainly helps them out. But we like that it because they're not that good at it, and they are learning, is it requires them to rely on each other. And it's like, one of the things we also had always said was like they may not like each other, but they need each other.
And going from that place of yes, where that they're going to make big mistakes, and that was also sort of fun of really telling it. I think it made them more human, that they were so far in over their heads, and yet just doing the best they can. And I think that really kind of spoke to us, just on a personal level. I sort of have always felt a connection to that notion of you're thrust into a position that you have no idea of necessarily exactly how you're supposed to do this impossible thing, but you're expected to do it nonetheless. And I think that took that allowed our characters to be highly
rootable. Like we root for them. We we want them to like and to watch them kind of find their way at least as storytellers, for us has been really, really satisfying.
And we also like the fact that they don't start out trying to be heroes.
They just want to get their names cleared.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to say they're selfish, because they're not. Almost some of them are.
I'm sorry, Duella is selfish.
Duella is selfish. The rest of they have a genuine heart.
Guys.
But I like the idea that they kind of it's sort of an inadvertent thing that they get. They sort of earn a title that they don't necessarily weren't seeking, nor felt like they intentionally earned, that then forces them to have to live up to it. And I thought that was, I think that was sort of a fun thing to write to.
Yeah.
The name Gotham Knights, I don't know what the timeline of this was, but Because I know there was the video game. Like, was it like, did you guys have to negotiate a lot to get the name Gotham Knight, or they were just like, nope, go ahead, use it?
It was I mean,
because it was the title. I mean, for a comic, one of the comic titles for years and years, and
unless I mean, the title when Natalie pitched it to us, it was always Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
And I think that it yes, and so yeah. I mean, the weird thing with the video game is that we had there was no overlap, or there was such a we would see things in promotional stuff that would be like, oh, that was the first time we realized, oh, they're doing that. I imagine it was probably the same thing from their side as well.
But yeah, we never talked to any. I mean, we had no communication or anything with any of it. It was just kind of two very separate things. So,
and we liked the idea of a team. That was sort of also for a team. Yeah. What attracted us most, I think, for that was the idea of doing a team, but also doing a team that's not a well-oiled machine. Doing a team that is in largely dysfunctional.
Yeah.
That is comprised of people with very different mindsets and skill sets, and that it felt at any point this could completely fall apart.
Yeah, that they are kind of locked in, or we kind of get the doors locked on the group dynamic, is because they are bound together by this common tragedy and being framed for it, and that they're going to need each other, and it's one of the lessons they learn early on is they're going to need each other to get out of it.
And we'll find ourselves, as you've experienced, as you've probably seen in some of the episodes, that we also test those relationships. That at certain points, opportunities are dangled that really force them to make some hard choices about how committed they are to each other, and if saving themselves. If the price is to screw over their fellow knights, are they going to take it? Are they going to stand together or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, Duella will, I guess, that will be, I guess, I'm just fascinated by how Duella is going to operate in all this. So, but something that I was curious, because as you can tell, I'm a huge comic book fan. So, I know Turner Hayes is an original creation, but I still try to do a little research, try to be like, could there be something going on? I found that there's a character named Billy Hayes who is also a villain in the comics. Could there be any relation, or am I just grasping at straws?
That would be a coincidence. There is, I mean, the big reason that we can't quite sort of go into it will eventually, by the end of the season, become a little bit more clear with why we created this original character. But the one advantage that we also had is that so many of our stories, you can pick up the comics and discover, I don't want to say necessarily how it'll end, but you can discover big sort of moves like Harvey Dent. Even sort of a casual viewer probably knows where that story goes. To a lesser degree, probably, Stephanie Brown. But if you're a diehard fan, you know where that story goes.
Yeah.
And so what was great was, since the show is much more of a mystery show, is having at the center of it a character that you can't pick up the comics and read ahead and figure out where this is going. That it gave us a tool set of really being able to use that character to kind of almost throw in a wild card element that you couldn't quite just figure out exactly where this is going. And ultimately, I think that with creating an original character for us, I think one of the things is, as huge comic book fans, it does frustrate us sometimes where it appears that in adaptations that they just kind of took the name of the character and just changed everything else. Yeah. And that for us is kind of frustrating. So our sort of mantra or sort of mindset for this has really been, if we're not going to honor the character, then we're not just going to take the name and just change all the backstory.
Yeah.
We're going to let's then, expand the mythology. Let's create a new character that can then be a part of this universe, as opposed to just taking a name and shoehorning a wildly different backstory into it.
Just for the sake of it. Like it would have been pointless to just take, here's Dick Grayson, but he's nothing like Dick Grayson and so on. Because I know, there's still fans who are having the theory, but wait, they're going to reveal in the pilot he's actually Tim Drake. I'm nope.
Well, it's also as again, huge comic book fan and I am old enough to have called in the what is it, the 1-900 whatever the number was, where the comic fans vote to kill Robin way back when, Death in the Family. Oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I
What did
called
you
in.
vote for? What did you? Who did? What fate did you vote for? Because this will determine if I will stick to this interview. I'm kidding.
Oh my gosh! All right, okay, I'm okay. I voted that Joker should kill him.
Good.
Because I wanted to see if DC would actually do it, and they did.
And he became Red Hood, so like
and
yeah,
I know. Anyway, I mean, and oh my gosh, Red Hood! How amazing is Red Hood? Thank God.
Yeah.
But having been a comic book fan for that long, yeah, it's to what James was saying. I have a real aversion to grafting stories of other characters onto like look, Dick Grayson's got an amazing story, especially with the Court of Owls and everything. I don't want to take that and just do a kind of half measure version of it. Same with Tim Drake and the others. It's just like those comics are there and people absolutely should read them right now because they're amazing stories. But with Turner, it kind of gave us the freedom to honor the spirit of Batman, but do something in a different way that people won't be like, oh, this is just watered down Tim Drake, or this is watered down,
And even I do think because there are certain depictions of the Batman universe that honestly we like we don't really need to see Martha Wayne's pearls bouncing down an alley.
I'm done with the pearls.
I love the pearls.
Love the pearls.
Yeah, love them.
You don't need Chad and James and Natalie's version of that.
Although someone pitched a really sort of incredible way of doing it, but no, it's one of those things where I do think that the tough thing is I think these mythologies always do need to be expanding and introducing, and if we're constantly sort of only sticking purely to canon characters, I think it will start to be a bit suffocating. And I think that while I believe as a fan, I totally get the appeal of, well, just do exactly what this comic is. But I do think in some ways, I think that even if you did that, it would feel a bit stale. And so I think that for our goal here has been trying to take things that people know, but also try and push things into a slightly different direction that allows for some fresh new developments. And I think I do think people will be surprised where ultimately this does end up. And I think that for us, it really sort of gave us a fresh avenue that we thought was fun, thrilling, and really interesting.
Speaking of surprises, because I was talking to your boy Misha Collins the other day, and he, I don't know if you have seen what he said, but he, because I asked him like, hey, Supernatural fans, they always want to see a reunion of some kind. Were there any plans? And he's like, yeah, we were trying to get Jensen as Batman. Is there anything you can share about that? Like, did you guys have any ideas what that was going to look like? Was he going to be in a bat suit, or like, were there going to be flashbacks, or what?
We can't go too much. Yeah, no, Misha had a whole plan for, but no, it did come out, and I think that this was a flashback that we had been working on, and that's all. In case we end up ultimately doing it, I don't want to quite say, but that's where that came up, and it is
such a tease, man.
It's but no, it's a. I mean, I look as I'm a huge fan of Jensen. I'm a huge fan of his work in the animated world as Batman, which and it's funny because a lot of the animated movies and certainly Batman the Animated Show is probably one of the biggest influences on Gotham Knights, especially with the look of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that I don't know if you my big sort of the big thing that sort of was my kind of deal breaker thing. If we cannot do, I will not be involved. Like I was sort of like I said, if we can't do the GCPD dirigibles,
I was with you on this. I was like, ride or die with the dirigibles too. I want credit for
that. I was like that for me, it was the thing that I wanted desperately to see the most.
Well, I mean, with the animated series, I mean that was what it's the opening image. It's the two lights, and we're like, we need live action now.
Yes.
It's
But to your question about the it's only because like we had the idea for the scene and the way it's written, and I very much want to just have that in the show somewhere, and I don't want to spoil it because I love it so
No, of course. Because I mean,
Yeah.
what if he's? Here's the thing: it's Batman. He could be alive. It's a comic book show. There could be clones. There could be. Well, good lord, I don't know if I want to see clones. I mean, multiple Jensen Ackles. I'm sure the world would love that. But faking deaths, clones, whatever. Like there are ways to bring him back. Or I guess that's goes into my next question. Like how? Because I was trying to be like, this feels like kind of like the way that the Nolanverse was doing it, where everything is pre-grounded. Like, would you say there is room for like the fantastical, the sci-fi elements, or what kind of tone is this universe for you guys? Because obviously, before fans are wondering, is it part of the Arrowverse? It's obviously not. So
it's not.
So we start in a.
We love the Arrowverse. It's just that
yes.
we needed this to be separate,
and we wanted it to so we very much wanted a heightened world, and that heightened but both grounded. So that's actually where the dirigibles came in.
Mhm.
Is we liked the GCPD airships because it told us that this wasn't quite our world, and I don't know if it's how readily apparent it is, but this is also our Gotham exists almost outside of time. Like there's antiquated technology mixed in with modern technology, with our sort of the computer you see in the Batcave is the highest tech thing. Almost all the other televisions you see are the old boxy CRT TVs. So it's very much an amalgamation of sort of present day, past. And so out of that, so that is a little bit of a heightened world. And so we did want it to feel grounded. At the same time, there is a small element that will be coming up in the show that is a bit more heightened, but we wanted to make it like kind of the one thing that gave our world veered it a little bit out of the real world.
Yeah, that it's that it with as grounded as we are with even being a superhero comic book show, as grounded as we are, we did want this one element to kind of pierce the veil of that groundedness a little bit.
Because one of the things I do love about the Batman comics is they do veer into some really interesting, unexpected places, especially into the horror realm. Like I actually sort of find a lot of the comics that are it's superhero, but it's there's some pretty just almost terrifying imagery there.
Yeah,
that I absolutely love.
I just have Killing Joke in a permanent loop in my head.
So very much took that is a way of being faithful to the comics, with that notion of where yes, it is the real world, but you occasionally will be encountering things that teeter on the edge of sort of real world. And we try and very much to ground it, but we also don't want to take over the show.
Well, that's why I love it so much when you guys were working on Gotham, the other show Gotham, that it was this timeless feeling, and that you guys had more freedom to do. Again, you're honoring the lore, but also that you're doing something new at the same time. Because I know. Like when I was watching the episodes, I was thinking like, is there a Nightwing in this universe? Is there a Catwoman? Like, where is everyone? But it kind of feels like again, like with Batman gone, like there's a reason why everyone is now petrified. Would it be fair to say that in this Elseworlds, let's call it Elseworld, you guys are kind of like these characters don't exist, and that's why the Gotham Knights needs to exist?
Yeah, there are. You will see hints of other, or at least references to other some.
Can I say that?
Canon characters, or I
Yes,
don't know.
you can say it. Yes, you can say.
Can I say that? No, there's a reference to Catwoman.
There is a reference to Catwoman.
Yeah, there's a
I
reference.
love that.
I mean, we do, and also this is where the timeline is sort of a bit interesting. That our Batman, that at the time of his death was a bit older. So there are some things that are in the past, but there are some things also, like for example, Harvey Dent has not turned into Two-Face yet. So there are various elements of the Batman lore that the timeline is a little bit shifted a bit. But that's actually, I think, sort of fun, is that it gives us the ability to introduce new things, or rather, things from the comics that we haven't quite seen yet. And to make sure that we're we're leaving room for we could
Yeah.
have seen this character
Yeah.
later.
I mean, you will, and there. One of the things, and again, this is just being comic book fans and fans of Gotham. I mean, we are permanent residents now, but having a sense of that history, of like the history of, you know, it's not like it's a Gotham you know, hopefully people will feel it's a Gotham they haven't seen before, but it's not a Gotham that has forgotten its history, because there are little Easter eggy kind of mentions in there, and I'm a total sucker for that stuff. So given my druthers, I will just pepper them in everywhere.
And this is sort of tough because you don't want to necessarily like make reference to a character being like dead and then discover, next year, someone comes in with this like perfect pitch that DC is like, absolutely, you can totally do that.
Yep.
Like you can, so it's a weird thing of we want to make sure the world does feel populated per the notions from the comics.
Yeah.
At the same time, you don't want to do something that boxes you in where you can't then later tell some amazing story that involves that character.
Because we've done that before on other shows.
Yeah, so it's a weird it's a weird dance there.
You gotta be careful about it, but it's fun. It's fun,
and there will be a couple of surprises coming up of various characters that from the canon that were super fun to write and to bring in.
Yeah.
When I was talking to Natalie yesterday, she told me about this amazing story of how you guys got the Coral Owls. Like, you guys had to pitch to DC, like, we need like a Coral Owls type group, but then like, what if we just gave it a court? And I heard how excited you guys were. So what, of course, we have the infamous, I hope this is not too much of a spoiler when I run this, but of course there is the infamous quote from, that Duella resides at the end of the pilot.
Yes.
But so what are you adding to your Coral Owls? Because I know you guys had Coral Owls during Gotham season.
Yes, season. I think season 3 of it. Which it didn't know. It's funny because the way you approach these things, like we really just wanted the Court of Owls, and so sometimes if you sort of take a direct approach to it, you'll get you don't know what answer you'll necessarily get, and so us trying to say, hey, we could use, with the Court of Owls works so perfect in terms of the dichotomy of what we talked about before, with taking our characters to the absolute lowest, making them the lowest of the social stratosphere of being the most vulnerable
and the most hated people
and so we need a villain that almost acts like the yin and yang of that, of like, okay, so we want the most powerful. We want someone who has had this insidious rule for centuries,
quite literally in the foundation of Gotham,
and who has the most access to power, and not just even in a physical way, but in a much more insidious way. And that's where it was like, the court is perfect. And I felt like, and this is in, I hope I'm not getting myself into trouble. I felt like the court was not Gotham, I don't think it was able to use the court in the most effective way. And then I thought this was a real opportunity.
They also had so much going on.
They had so much going on.
There was so many characters.
It was just, And so we looked at it really as, I totally cut you off.
No, just it was sort of like, I think it was our favorite villain that we felt like was a real opportunity to do that justice. Because we did it really. What's also great is that I think that with many, because our show is much more of a mystery, the whodunit it becomes a little bit tricky, because you don't want to keep the audience waiting on cards to be turned over. So what the court gave us, which was great, was that it gave us a villain who we know that is who the bad guy is, but we don't necessarily know who's under those masks. And we get to start to play a fun guessing game. And it allowed us to identify, so the audience isn't bored or wondering what's going on, or we're not piling on mystery upon mystery. I mean, one of the things that we've really strived to do is just keep the story moving.
I mean, I think so. What I love about the Court of Owls is let me back up. In telling like a kind of serialized mystery over the season, we wanted to make sure that we gave answers along the way, and that it's not just kind of this mystery that we're just going to keep, but that whenever we give an answer, it asks 3 more questions. Okay, the Court of Owls, but then who is that? Well, that's a much bigger question, and one that's going to be more dangerous to find out the answer to.
And so, honestly, from the comics, that was sort of the most. Some of the Court of Owls runs are the most, I thought, terrifying.
Yeah.
And there are you haven't probably quite gotten to that yet, but there are some of the just genuinely skin crawling, creepy moments from the comics that was just such a utter joy. And
I mean, I can think of one scene, and it involves, let's say, actually, it's been shown in the trailers. I guess I can talk about it. When the court is surrounded by a certain someone.
Yes.
Yeah. I like, y'all can do this at 9 p.m. Like, you can all do this at the 9 p.m. time. So this was creepy. And also the Talon suit looks like, cause I freeze frame and I saw all the motifs and everything. Cause I'm like, oh, this is a black suit. I'm like, no, there are lines, there are motifs, there are designs. So like, I really like that.
Our costume designer, Jennifer May Nickel, just tirelessly, and her team did such an amazing job with. I mean, it was when I saw it in person, because we'd see, it's a long process, and Jennifer and her team are just so, the attention to detail, exactly what you're talking about, layers and layers upon layers, and even things, underneath to create the structure of everything. When I saw that thing in person, the hair stood up on the back of my neck as both excitement and fear, because it was terrifying.
Because some of those things are very hard to get right, and you can spend a ton of money, and then it just looks like a bad Halloween costume. Mm-hmm. And we've been very fortunate with, like, I thought Brainiac on Krypton was a complete home run. Yes. You do discover, though, that things that work really well in 2 dimensions on the comic book page, when you try and bring them into 3 dimensions, start to, like, it just becomes this tricky thing. And it's almost like if you get 1 degree off, it just goes bad.
Yeah.
And so we very much with I'm just gonna say it. So we don't have to dance around with the Talon. We're very much like, we need to get this right.
People know they're a Talon. Is a Talon,
and we actually, DC got us this beautiful statue that's in our office that we were taking pictures of from all the different angles, sending them to Jennifer,
posing with it.
We dress it up actually for holidays.
We do. We do.
It becomes the Halloween. Was that
Halloween? Was a little the Christmas one was not.
I can't remember the Christmas one, but
did we do a Hanukkah?
I don't remember. I don't know. But anyway, so in the level of detail, and Jennifer is just so incredible. Like, even there's a layering of leather, and like one of the leather pieces actually has it embossed with these owls. That honestly, you probably would never be able to see it on screen. But just it's that level of detail that she was so just infused the whole thing with, and
we knew we were gonna. I mean, quite frankly, we were gonna. Our whole Court of Owls thing. If the Talon didn't, if the Talon costume didn't deliver, I mean, we were not. It was we were going to be not in a great position, and man.
It looks good, because like in the trailer it went so quickly. So but once I actually had a time to like pause and frame and like zoom in and kind of like, oh damn, like, this is sick. I hope these at least also hook you guys up with some Coral Owl's masks, because the masks on the show look pretty fun.
Yeah, no, thank you. Because that's also very tricky, because it is. I mean, what's creepy in the comics is that the blank masks give this anonymity. That does feel unsettling. At the same time, there's not a ton of detail.
Right.
And so we went through a very long process of taking, doing just all these different versions of those masks to try and really kind of like, is this giving us that right level of creepy anonymity, or is it, so that was a long and hard process of trying to, at the same time, make it look like the comics.
Yeah.
And so there are just
it definitely does.
Yeah, no.
I mean, when you get 75 people in a room with them all wearing those masks, it's deeply, deeply unsettling.
You're telling me
But
you're telling me there's going to be a scene this season where we
Oh,
have
yes.
oh, okay.
And this is
I'm getting chills.
in full. And this is where again our costume designer Jennifer May Nicol just did, these people dressed to the nines, all different time periods, and just dozens and dozens of people wearing those masks, lit by creepy chandelier candlelight is just, I mean, it's just stunning.
By my favorite, one of my favorite comic book covers ever, is the one-off, the Court of Owls. It's an issue of I think it's Rob. God, now I'm blanking on it. But it's the cover with basically it's the family photo of the matriarch sitting in the chair and the people gathered around in the masks, and because it was so chilling because it was just a rather everyday family photo with people in those creepy masks, and then it becomes indelibly terrifying.
There's later in the season there's a bit where they find a bunch of these photographs that are inspired by that comic.
Oh, I look forward to that. That's gonna be fun.
It was so weird though, having to just absolute fun working with a photographer and working with these these actors playing and trying to get the right level of just this, like, we kept just saying, like, this should feel like just this banal family photo. It's just the one difference is that people are wearing these incredibly creepy, unsettling masks. And so that was just a blast to do, and cannot wait for people to see it.
Yeah, it's in fact, and it's beyond the episodes. I know you saw through the first 6, but in the upcoming episodes, you will get your Court of Owls fix. Let me just tell you, it's coming, and we're especially excited because it just is at the same time when you look at it, it's like, this is really beautiful, and I'm absolutely scared to death because especially when you introduce our characters into that kind of situation, it's going to be hard for them to get themselves out of it.
Well, something I was very curious about was again, because we have them all being at the teenage stage of their life, and then, they're still having, Stephanie still has to maintain school and she still has to help them and so on. But like at some point, when does it get to a point where they actually have to choose? I can't live one of these lives anymore. Like, am I gonna have to make? Are they gonna have to make choices to be able to become who they are meant to be?
Yes, and we do, and although they are teenagers, they are a little bit on the cusp. I mean, that's where it's sort of the age range was specifically chosen to that point of where you do go from being kid/teenager to that being an adult. And we very much intentionally sort of set the start of the show on the precipice of that, of really they're many of them are, well, some of them, the ones that grew up in a much more rough and tumble life certainly weren't living in this innocent world, but for the others, it's very much, this is a new eye-opening experience, and from there eventually discover they do have to leave their old lives behind in order to embrace this new
and that's state. That's really true of all of them. I mean, even Carrie, who is our most experienced vigilante, is she's leading a double life as well as everybody else. She's Robin, and then she's a Gotham Academy student, and so that is a real turning point for her, just as it is because of everybody else. Because I mean, as you were saying, like even Duella and Cullen and Harper, who have been living on the fringes of society, it's been a rough and tumble existence. And then you throw the Court of Owls and stuff like that into it, and being framed and being hunted by every, person with a gun or a grudge in the city of Gotham it's up the stakes for everybody, and they have to really rely on each other or they're not going to make it out alive.
And kind of to put, I mean, so much, thematically, the show really is about the notion of, you're living in the wake of your parents' legacy, for better or worse, and are you going to follow that legacy, or are you going to choose a radically different path? And so each of the characters this season will find themselves in that position of having to make that choice. And a lot of times, sometimes it feels like those choices have already been made for us. And do you, at what point are you forced to forge your own path? Or do you just give in to the easier path of the one that has been laid out for you? And so in that sense, while in some ways, because the characters, we're starting them at a place where they're largely teenagers, it is very much about the journey is where they go from there.
Well, that kind of takes me into Duella, because she is, because there's a lot of mystery in the show, but with her, because at one point there's going to be people wondering, like, is she really Joker's daughter, or like what's going on? Can you tease anything about what is her family lineage? Like who is the mother? Does she and Harvey Dent? Because in the comics she goes also by Duella Dent. Just saying. So like, what can you tease me about that?
We can't. I mean, so her mother is Jane Doe.
Okay.
We're gonna meet her,
and we're gonna meet her, and we're gonna find out how. No, she was born in Arkham, and so she, I mean, imagine being raised essentially by the Joker and Jane Doe in a notorious asylum for the
with a lot of
insane.
crazy uncles and aunts living.
Yeah, cousins. Yeah.
And so there is with that, and there has been different incarnations of Duella. Yeah. And so I think we found a way to kind of to tell some of the most interesting and compelling versions that we've seen before. But for her, yes, it is like the tough thing is where do you go from when you have these parents that are criminals, and everyone assumes you'll just be just like them. I mean, and so that for her, that is, especially then when you're framed for doing this hideous thing, but then also find yourself weirdly in this position of other people are now expecting you to act as a hero, and it's like that for her, very much that journey is she wants nothing to do with any of that. She wants absolutely, she one of the things that we kind of keep coming back to on the show is putting her in a position where she's expected to do the right thing and doesn't. And just and to really play with the I think that so many of the tropes we know, and they're lovely and they're fun and whatever, is where you do have where the bad character you eventually know is they're going to become a better person, and we just love with her just playing with that expectation. And so we will delve more into her parentage, and yes, we'll get to meet the mom, and that will be a fun. Is one of the most fun journeys on the show.
Yeah, it's in the latter part of the season. It's some fun real estate story wise with Duella.
Well, given you guys' ties to also to Batwoman, because one of my friends, he asked me, can you ask him this? I'm like, I will try. Is there any chance maybe any Batwoman alums might be popping up this season? And I know they obviously wouldn't be the characters they play on Batwoman, but like,
no, well, not. I mean, we had. There's a couple characters that did appear on Batwoman, but as far as actors, people portraying, is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if they were playing different characters.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because we're a different Gotham than it was in Batwoman. I think, there wouldn't be a reprisal of actors for those characters. I mean, we had such a great experience with everybody.
Largely we haven't, only because just shooting. Batwoman was shot in Vancouver. We shot this pilot in Toronto, and then shooting in Atlanta. That for our Vancouver-based former colleagues, that would be not a deal breaker necessarily, but we didn't. There wasn't really an opportunity that did present itself, but we'd absolutely, we loved working with that cast.
Yeah.
Like, imagine Cameron Johnson now, like, actually playing Lucius Fox in this universe, like a young Lucius Fox. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved seeing Javicia reprise on very recently.
Yeah.
How great is that, man?
Oh, that was so much fun. Yeah. Like, again, like, because I don't want to spoil it. Have you guys caught up to her entire arc?
I will admit I'm behind because we are cutting together our season finale now.
Oh yes, and you guys just wrapped.
So
we're like one episode behind.
we're behind, but and I have to like stay off of. I probably should just stay off Twitter to begin with. But every time, but I'm always like, nah, no. I'm like, I want to see, but spoilers. No, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, this won't be a spoiler because in last week's episode, I mean, you guys must have lost it when she literally quotes both Kevin Conroy and then Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
like.
Yeah,
and it's actually, I mean, it's one of those weird things is some things that just working on these shows, you become a little bit aware of certain things, but honestly, maybe it's just because we've been so just neck deep in this show. I was not privy to the fact that this was what they're doing, so it was a wonderful surprise.
Yeah.
For us. So, but again, I don't. Right, because I don't think
I didn't know
either.
I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't. And
so kudos to them on keeping that a secret.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we just hear weird. You end up our offices are down the one floor down from the Flash. So you occasionally just through knowing people and sort of osmosis. But we were not had no foreknowledge of that, which was super fun.
Yeah, that was a great like thing to wake up to, and then I'm like, okay, I gotta, and now I just have to stay away from it because I don't want spoilers.
Yeah, it's a fun arc. It's a fun arc. Yeah. You were talking about filming Atlanta. I was talking to Natalie about it also yesterday. That I love Vancouver. I just want to put it on the record, but I was actually really happy to not be able to say at any point during these episodes, oh, that's where Flash shot. That's where Arrow shot. That's where Batwoman shot. That's where Legends. I love the fact that I didn't recognize this Gotham, and that you get again I know Titans, they did their Gotham in Toronto as well. And then you guys moved. I guess going to Atlanta was also a way for you guys to be able to know, like, because Atlanta is a little more protected in terms of set photos happening whenever. So because again, I don't think we've seen any pictures or anything from Atlanta since you guys moved up there.
Yeah.
No, I mean that wasn't a factor, but it's interesting. That is very actually it is true. It's no, I mean ultimately for us is we wanted, because we loved the look of that New York City gave the Fox Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
But New York was also tough because you run to that recognizable point, and I think that for us we felt like the visually, because visually we were kind of going more for the Batman the Animated Show look, that we felt like we needed to kind of create it both through visual effects and also just in shooting in places that where you didn't recognize it as a real world location, but also, as you say, where if you've seen a lot of these shows where it kind of just takes you out of the scene to be like, oh, that's where famous climax happened. And so we had originally shot in Toronto because it did have a mix of old and new buildings. It's interesting. They've done a lot of new construction in the last 20 years since the last time Chad and I filmed there. And so there's a lot, it actually looks a lot more like Vancouver.
Yeah, they're slowly turning it into
these
Vancouver.
Big glass skyscrapers. And we were like, oh, I don't remember all this.
And plus, I mean, Georgia gave us, I mean, especially if you think of like kind of the outer boroughs of Gotham and just that kind of that, it gave a real genuine grit to the city.
Oh, yes.
And to say nothing of just like the amazing crews and the casting pool, the diversity of the casting pools.
We had worked on Vampire Diaries down there, and so that was we just loved working there. But it allowed us to. I mean, one of our things was we wanted, especially where we're in a kind of less privileged areas, is that we, very much like our thing was, we were like, it's a permanent garbage strike. Chad and I both met going to school in New York.
Yeah.
And you would just constantly be walking by mounds and mounds
taller
and
than we were,
trash and like rats scurrying around. And that was even like in the nice areas. And so that was one of the things that we said with the set dressing. We were constantly like, more trash.
Yep.
More
Yep.
More trash.
Yep.
More trash.
Yep. There's a water main leak everywhere. There's no, I mean, something.
Burned
Yeah.
down. We were
There's
like,
smoke. There's noir smoke around
Exactly.
corners and so on.
Yeah, like completely. I don't know where that light source comes, but it shines through that amazing steam barrel of gun. Yep, great, love it.
so we were constantly, and it allowed that one thing it did by creating our Gotham more, it allowed us to take a little bit more liberties with junking things up and making things seem a little bit more downtrodden without and yeah, it did actually. I think it helped us that we were it kept us off a little bit of the radar of certain things. I mean, I certainly understand the impulse for people wanting spoilers and wanting,
Yes,
I get it. At the same time, I just like, we grew up in a world where we went into Empire Strikes Back having no idea that, where that was going. And that, as I don't know how old was I at the time? Like, I guess I would have been like 8 years old. That was just so mind blowing. And it actually, I feel bad for people that you sometimes just can't even escape, sort of things that get spoiled for you in advance.
Yeah. That's actually what happened to Javisha. Actually, her Red Death's whole reveal was revealed on set photos and so on. So I'm like, and I don't want to say that you should film inside, because you need those exteriors sometimes. But yeah, it's with Atlanta, it's more guarded off. I like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. I mean, you have to shoot the story, and if somebody's there, But yeah, Atlanta protected us from that, and a great deal. So
it just also gave us just a good look that was both like Atlanta has old stuff, but it also it doesn't quite have as much recognized. Like, you're not, in Toronto, you're constantly framing out the CN Tower.
Great tower, love it.
Great tower, yeah.
Great tower, but
you didn't have it just was it wasn't quite as recognizable. And yes, as you've said, like, we haven't seen it a billion times in these superhero shows.
Yeah, and also, like, I think you guys are one of the few creators in Hollywood that can say you worked on 3 different Gotham cities, which is pretty, because Gotham looks different, Gotham in Batwoman looks different. Because I've never been to Atlanta, but I've seen a couple shows in Atlanta. But like, even then, like, when I was watching Gotham Knights, I'm like, I don't recognize anywhere, and I like it. Like, the location for Gotham Academy. Like, I can't say that. Oh, that is the Smallville High School or something. Like, I like, and then also I love, because one of my favorite sets that you guys have built is the clock tower where they're all hiding. Any Batman story needs a good clock tower. That's just my philosophy.
We call it the Bat Cave in the sky. Their Bat Cave in the sky.
The Bat Cave in the sky. I like that.
Because that was one of the things that we loved, that we loved from the comics, was that it was a great sort of inversion of, because we've seen, there's been many, terrific Bat Caves, and it was like, oh, this is actually sort of a fresher approach of that just
the Belfry
that we hadn't really seen. Now we obviously, and so this was very intentional, though. The Belfry from the comics is very high tech.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing. It's
really
just the look of it the high tech versus the kind of Gothic architecture is extraordinary. And in the comics, I mean, some of those panels are just so striking.
Oh yeah.
But with wanting to take away everything from our characters, we needed to take that technology and strip it away.
So our hope is that if we're fortunate enough to continue telling the stories, that we'll eventually get to that place. But we want to see the evolution of it.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It allowed us. I mean, I love it. That set was a fun set. I think it was fun to light, and I think it after a while did get a little bit cooped up. We started having life imitate or art imitate life with when these people taking refuge in this place. But it's that window, the clock. It's all just beautiful.
Yes.
And it also fits in with the timeless tone that you're looking for as well. Because I forgot. Yeah, because I know it. Like, the last time I saw Belfry was literally in the Gotham Knights game, and that is very high take it zone. But if these are, first of all, if these are meant to be teenage kids with no resources, I'm not expected to be 60 monitors or like all the security and that's something that can honestly you guys can build up to as like, because at some point, like, these kids will be fine. They will get their names clear. It's just the how, but like they will. they will have Turner's money because I'm guessing he will be the one to pay for all of these things.
Yeah, no, see but that was very intentional as far as like, I mean, there's certain points where there are certain things where they would bring in like a prop or something, and we're like, oh, that's too high tech for right now, but hang on to that because that will be that'll be great later on.
Yeah.
And to really embrace the low techness, at least from the beginnings.
What did we say? Well, especially with Harper from the comics being such a technical whiz and an engineer and just a brilliant mind, is we had said they're going to have cool stuff. They're just going to either have to make it or steal it. And so we have fun. I mean, even in some of the episodes that you've seen with Harper's kind of ingenuity and the things that they are able to kind of appropriate and employ and put to good use. It's fun.
And Stephanie also with her hacking.
Yes.
There's a line in the pilot where she's like, I never hacked a bank, but I've always wanted to. And I'm like, why is this so relatable in so many ways? I want to ask something about, again, because I tried it with Natalie yesterday. I'm going to try it with you guys as well. At some point, these kids need to put something on to go out there on these streets. They can't just be running around in hoodies and whatnot. So I'm going to try to rephrase it from the way I said yesterday. Would at least one of them, by the end of the season, have a full-fledged costume?
Yes. But it's not necessarily like one of the things we just wanted to take a completely natural reality-based approach to this of how so it's not just like, oh, I'm a superhero now, let me go to my closet and let's put this on.
Yeah, of course.
That we wanted to really kind of play it in an almost organic way. So there's going to be so we essentially with the costumes is took the approach of, okay, this is what they're going to use for now because this is the only. I mean, literally, we see them in very early episode stealing clothes and appropriating things from the.
Turner would say borrows.
Would borrow, yeah.
Or
taking. I don't think we actually make reference to it, but no, we do actually. The raiding the lost and found bin.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. And so actually, so the notion of this was to start them at that place, and then slowly we're going to see them trying on different things. That some things work, some things don't quite, and slow to really sort of actually see the evolution of these characters' looks. But we did. It was one of those things we didn't want this to be a just quick thing.
Yeah.
So by the end of the season, you'll see a couple. There's a couple.
There's a couple of shall I say comic looking looks for our
but it's an ongoing evolution, and so you'll see this. I mean, it's one of those things where I don't want to just keep sort of teasing people to whatever, but I think that if we're fortunate enough to continue this story, we will get. There are reasons that will allow them to get to that sort of next level, but we wanted to make them earn it. And we wanted to tell that organically and to really sort of solidify who they are as people before we give them something that makes them somewhat
more superhero. Invincible.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Because I think that is the challenge. I think that is really the challenge. Is so many times once they have something that's bulletproof, you really start to find yourself in a bind for now trying to make them vulnerable, trying to make them, and then you don't want to fall into the trap of just, okay, now we just bring in 20 guys with guns. Well, even the guns don't, they
need to be laser guns. Well,
so it becomes this. So that's where we wanted to have fun in the early, once you sort of cross that bridge, you can't really go back. And so we wanted to have as much, fun.
There's so much story to tell, at least in our heads. There's so much story to tell before we get there, and we just didn't want to fast forward through any of that really fun growing pains of a superhero to just cut ahead to it, because I think that I mean, I think this season 1 is a pretty wild ride. I hope the audiences find it as well.
And what's fun, I mean, what's like fun about Stephanie Brown is getting, you know, there is a lot of great story with her that it's actually great to finally have the real estate to actually tell. And I think if we sort of fast play too many things, we would find ourselves kind of skipping over certain things that I think,
of course,
worth waiting for.
Well, I mean, I think that, and I will just say I think you are too. Correct me if I'm wrong. A sucker for a good origin story, and one of the things that, getting back to what really excited us about being able to do Gotham Knights, was like that it had the potential to be a lot of these characters' origin story, and like Stephanie Brown, you know, Turner Hayes, even though he's not from the comics, he does have his own origin story, you know, and you know Harper and Cullen, you know, certainly Harvey Dent, you know, and to be able to kind of, you know, there's so much story real estate that you have to getting people where they are, that we wanted to make sure that we didn't fast forward through any of that.
Of course.
At the same time, not sitting on the ball. I mean, that's
that's very important to not sit on the ball.
We never wanted people to be bored or to be not wanting to know where the next episode was going. And so that sort of accelerated storytelling has been very much at the forefront of our, you know, we sort of embrace our Vampire Diary roots in that sense of just keep the story moving.
Yeah.
And
the Vampire Diaries of cliffhangers of episodes are
yeah, I remember because my big sister used to watch the show, and I guess, you know, I watched a few seasons, but she would tell me like all these like, so Jeremy died for the 5th time, and I'm like, how does this keep happening? And like, you know, and now like Caroline is a vampire, and Bonnie and Damon are they're like in this like alternate universe, or like they're like gone. And I'm like, yeah, so it's like, you know, my sister recaps the vampire in a very funny way, and I was like, what are you watching? But and also, but what I love about these characters you're bringing on is that for them, you guys get to be the ones to tell their origin stories for the first time. There is no, because this is the first time we see Carrie Kelly. This is the first time we really get to see Stephanie Brown in live action, you know, outside of her Batwoman episode. For Colin and Harper, you know, they have never been like, these are, you guys get to put a definitive take on the live action origin story. So that's why I'm excited. You know, like, yeah, like of course, seeing costumes is always fun, but given the fact that we have nothing to compare it to, like we can't, you know, I can't go say, oh, I remember in the early 2000s, you know, Stephanie Brown appeared on this show and she had the Batgirl costume or whatnot. It would be fun to see how this Stephanie comes up with the solution of, my name should be Spoiler. I really want to see how she makes that connection. So
interesting. It is. I mean, that is where, and I think that's also where we want to have fun. We want this to be enjoyable for people that don't know the comics, but also enjoyable for people that do. And that is a very fine line to sometimes walk, and that you don't want people to be bored because they know, oh, this cool thing's going to happen. We'll get to that cool thing, and we want to just make sure at each point we are telling sort of a cool, very interesting story. But I do think what it allows us to, because as you say, we haven't seen many of these different versions, is we're not just skipping to their big, you know, like it would have been very easy to sort of skip over a bunch of this stuff. But I think that's the sort of fun, cool stuff. And that is, I think it's much more satisfying to build to some of these things if we've seen that journey along the way. At the same time, sort of twisting up. I mean, there's a couple things where we're very conscious of where the audience knows it's going, and from the comics, or just from cultural osmosis. Right. But and it's not just twisting it up to twist it up, but to veer in a way that's a little bit unexpected, that I think is a way of illuminating a different aspect of a character, or a different aspect of their journey. But to still make it interesting for people who know ultimately where it ends up.
But you're right. It's not like we never once in a writer's room or in our office or whatever said, well, we got to change it just to change it. It was like no, there's, you know, the comic books are amazing for a reason, and it's because they're amazing. And so, there are, some things that some stories that we in trying to tell, there's some stuff that will be familiar, and there will be some things that we throw a little curveball or a big curveball, but it's always kind of in service of the characters and where they would go, and hopefully, be able to honor the stuff we did alter, would be able to kind of honor and hopefully people will see in a satisfying way, like, oh, okay. But
Well, one thing I wanted to ask, because you guys talk about like the, if you guys are able to continue this series. I know with the state of the CW the way it is, of course there are all those questions. So I'm like, have you guys had any conversation with the new people at the CW to kind of give an idea like where you would go with season 2, or what's the situation?
We haven't discussed the second season, because usually those conversations kind of just happen naturally as the episodes are. I mean, once it starts airing or whatever. But the CW has been incredibly supportive.
Oh yeah,
they really like the show. We couldn't ask for they've been very supportive, and
from the beginning.
From
the time that we started handing in story documents and stuff with the pilot and the pilot script and everything. They've been. And this is we've worked on shows where this has not been the case, but they are genuine fans of the show. They are fierce advocates for our vision of kind of what we want, and it's always a very good dialogue. There's never been any kind of we want. There's just been none of that. It's always been very kind of supportive, and even on things that they're like, well, what about this, and we'll talk through things. But I mean, yeah, it's been great, and the same with Warner Brothers studio and DC Comics as well.
DC has been absolutely amazing, and they've been so helpful and supportive, and it's just been that's been absolutely great. I mean, obviously the state of television is a very weird time overall on any network, anything to be making television right now. We're at an interesting crossroads, but we're very happy with our the support we've been given.
Yeah, they I mean, the word creative partner gets thrown around a lot, but I mean, they across the board really are, and it's everybody wants to make the same show. And again, we've been on shows where that has not been the case, but everybody, and even just as we're all, getting into the finale and everything like that, they've all been really happy with the season. And we have too.
And we've really, in some ways, some of these factors you can't entirely put out of your head, but we've just been trying to tell the best story we can.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of all we can do.
Yeah. It's sort of like,
we
just never know how these things sort of work out.
Yeah.
And so, we're just kind of hoping that people find
it. Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, before, sorry, I was going to say, because I know I could talk to you guys forever. So, we will have to do this again, hopefully in the near future. But the last thing I wanted to ask, because I talked to Misha a little about it, and he, because he's already, we know Two-Face is coming. On a scale from 1 to 10, how shook are we gonna be when we see that first time of him, like in the makeup, that he apparently sat for like I think 4 hours to do or something?
Yeah, he was very committed. It's funny because with certain things is we're so blessed to have Misha on so many different levels. But what I did love that when we were initially doing the makeup test or whatever, like he was very much like, oh, I think it'd be cool if we did this. And we were like, oh, we were sort of shying away from that because it'd be like an extra hour on the makeup chair. And he was like, that's okay.
He's like, wow. Yeah, you have to honor the thing. I think this does this. And we're like, great. Can I bring you something while you're in the chair, please? I would like to
maybe a coin to flip.
No, and so he has been so just into it and just loves it so much, and so I think that so finding the look was super important because you just don't want to get that wrong.
Well, I mean, not unlike the Talon costume being like, we're going to live or die by how that works. If you give people Two-Face, you got to give people. You got to give Two-Face. You got to give a Two-Face that is both satisfying to people. It's tragic and horrific, but also you can't give them what they've seen before. And there've been some pretty great, representations of Two-Face in both live action and, to say nothing of, animation and comics. So
and you also don't want it to be repulsive to look at on a weekly basis.
You don't want to turn into a fan of the opera necessarily.
No,
like, that was one of those things where you wanted it to still be iconic and creepy, but also kind of fun and not. And so it is, and I think that the reveal we're very proud of.
Yeah.
And it's I think fans will dig it.
I think so too, and I think that I will share with you a little story, but not a long story, but about the first time that I saw the makeup appliance in the flesh, as it were, was we're in Atlanta. I'm walking down the hall, kind of near where the actors' little offices are, and I hear this voice behind me, "Hey, handsome." And I recognize it as Misha Collins' voice, and he's always very, jovial and fun and everything. And so I turn around, just like ready to go, "Hey, Misha," and he's got the prosthetic, and it's the most startling, amazing, scary. I was giddy in seeing it. So. Maybe
that's him walking around on set, just telling people, "Hi, how's it going?" Whatever. Like, good lord, that's probably.
Oh yeah, that's one of the best things you would see him just kind of hanging out.
Well, and to see, and there was sorry, the part 2 of the little story was that when he there were I can't remember. I think it was I believe it was Oscar Morgan, who plays Turner. Approached us, and Misha was turned in such a way, as Two-Face, was turned in such a way he didn't see it at first, and so it was only, it happened perfectly because it was because Misha had turned to say something to somebody and then turned back, and I got to see my own crazy reaction in Oscar Morgan's face seeing this thing. And it was and it's that reaction that I hope and genuinely think that our audience is going to have.
And he just brings so much charisma to it too, in which I mean that's where we were so fortunate to find. I mean, because I think our big nightmare scenario would be someone who puts all the makeup on is like, oh, okay, we gotta get this down to 20 minutes. Like, I can't do this every,
Yeah.
And he was just so excited and just great and just, so collaborative about the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's really his commitment to the character, to Harvey Dent.
He seems to very much fun about this.
It would not be. I mean this. It would not be the same story without him, because his take and understanding and commitment and just honestly love of the role and the character and wanting to honor it on, just on an actor level, on a fan level, you're playing Two-Face, you're playing Harvey Dent.
And very much, I think that one of the things that I think that the challenge is the fact that, everyone's obviously waiting for Two-Face. And so of making it so, our goal here was to make it so the audience really was almost dreading that point of like being so invested in Harvey, to taking you to the point of where you are like, no, don't do this.
No.
That's how I was feeling because I'm not gonna get spoilers, but I think you guys know exactly which shot I'm talking about. But in 106,
yes,
I'm like, I don't want him to do that. Like, don't do this to Misha.
It's funny with that shot. The whole reason, I'll just just confess this, wherever the whole reason that we were like, oh, we got to give the first 6 to people or whatever is
that's right. But to the critics,
to press and everything, was that we were very much like, oh God, that moment is so awesome that we were like, we were very much that whole episode. I just absolutely.
It's a great episode.
Just
it's a great episode.
Yeah.
But the visuals of what the visual guys that we will see, because people now in the comments are going to be like, Andy, what are you talking about? What are you doing? I'm like, I'm not allowed to say, but it's really cool.
Yeah,
it'll be worth the wait. It'll be worth the wait, and hopefully worth the tease, which we should probably stop talking about.
But I will say, when we get to that point, we should talk
or keep talking about it,
because the number that shot was just very, very difficult to get, and the specifics of it are actually sort of amusing, but it was one of those frustrating things of where you're like, okay, we can only do this a couple more times.
We have to get this right. We have to get it right. It was worth it. It was worth every
it.
So, and I love hearing you say that about the shot that we're not going to say what the shot is. But I love that you had the reaction of that, because you're the kind of fan that I think will speak.
But it's like, I didn't think we could see something like that in live action. I felt like it's like, oh, it would be too much CGI, or no, it's like, how do you make something that practical? So, but guys, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure to talk to you guys. We need to do this again at some point, and I can't wait for fans to see the series premiere on Tuesday, March 14th at 9 Central. Congrats on what has looked to be an amazing first 6 episodes. I can't wait to crap my pants, scream out loud, or whatever is about to come, because I'm sure there will be things for me to react to. So thank you guys so much, and have an amazing completion of the season finale, and then hopefully season 2.
Yeah, thank you so much, and let's talk again on the other side of 6 when you've seen some more episodes. Can we do that?
Yes,
yes,
I'm more than down to.